other languages other than English. What Anil Murthy said, there's such a lot of new people getting educated, the new literates, and they like to read in their own language. But now they're introducing English in primary schools, and now you find that even the lowest middle class person wants his child to learn English because they feel that that's how he'll get a better livelihood. So
it's also true.
That is a threat. And after all, language, you cannot force language down anybody's throat. You learn language for two reasons. One is that it will earn you a livelihood, and the other is because you're emotionally attached to it. You can't leave it. It's a part of your persona, part of your whole personality, part of you, part of your life. So if that emotional attachment is there, but if you cannot earn your livelihood through it. Now I know that a Hindi writer is paid 1/10 of what an English writer is paid. A Hindi journalist is paid 1/10 of at least 1/5 of what an English journalist is paid. Half the time the Hindi writer is not paid. I mean, this is another myth that the writer need not be paid. And I find here in the last 2 days that I've been here that money has been talked about a lot. That is it economically feasible? Can you live on it? But if you talk like that in the Hindi literary world, they'll think you are very mercenary.
It's allowed in the English writing world, but not in the.
But I have done one thing. I have always insisted on being paid, and that is because the young writers say that if you do not insist, then they will not pay us at all. But at the same time, I find that among the young, they have cushy jobs elsewhere, and then they write, and then they even pay money to get published because they don't need the money. Whereas we live on incomes from writing. From income from the writing to some extent at least, and I do a lot of hack work to supplement it. But if you do not have other options, then you will write well enough to sell, and then probably you'll not run after the awards and the fellowships and all that. Because the only 1 or 2 writers I know who did not have jobs were really trying to get fellowships or awards, because you have to live. You have to live. So, writing in a language other than English has a lot of practical problems.
This reminds me, I was reading of a piece that Vidula Garg wrote on Delhi, and she talks about the time in her school days. Teacher asked her to write an essay, autobiography of a beggar. So she penned out an essay where the beggar would beg in the daytime and write in the night time. He was a beggar and a writer. Beggar writer. So the teacher, when she gave the essay to the teacher, in the bit standard, 10th standard. So the teacher was outraged. She said, "You've insulted both of them."
The beggars, you insulting the beggars also. So I said, I mean, one of them is alright. How can I insult both? She added teachers to the list, But the point, there is a point to it. There's a point to it. It's not that, the important thing is not that he was begging. The important thing is that he was happy to live at that standard. The standard of living that a beggar could afford, he was quite fine with that. If a writer is fine with that, then it's alright. But if he wants a little more, then it's very difficult even now.
Relative to your needs and.
It's very difficult even now to live on your writing. After 27 books, I can't live on.
Some of the greatest English writers in Britain, Henry James, they were not rich. They took a long time to be known at that time. So it is true of English writers.
Yes. But nowadays, this.
But if you write to the market, then it is different. There are writers like that also.
So the trick, ladies and gentlemen, is to be a contented beggar writer. Be happy at our pace of living. We'll throw the floor open to questions.
Get ready.
Yes.
She will take all the orders.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Anupati.
During the time of the British, that troubled me a lot. So, because the idea of But the fact that
pre-nation. What I
okay, I want.
intended to say was that we were not a nation foreign power. You cannot be a nation. You may be in your mind, but politically you are not a nation. If you think that women have a different language, that there is a language difference which is there between men's writing and women's writing, then this is true that women tend to use more tadbha words because they come in contact, they live on two tiers. Cerebrally they are living on the same tier on which men are living, but they are also dealing with the dhobi and the nai and the maid and all that. But this difference is again disappearing because men are also dealing with the same kind of things. So initially women used more tadbha words and than men. I mean both tatsam and tadbha. There is a combination of tatsam and tadbha words in women's writing. And they use three types of languages. Very tatsam for all the cerebral interactions and the narration, the narrative, formal narrative, and tadbha language for interactions, dialogue, and then a language in between for stream of consciousness, for thinking, for flow. So there were three tiers, whereas men did not use that tatsam combination to the same extent. But gradually that difference is also disappearing. And in my grandmother's days probably, there was a backyard where women congregated. And again, this is a myth that women talk about their secrets to each other all the time and men don't. Just go to a locker room. And how do men know what women talk about since they've never been? This is like a cabal.
Children as a child.
No, as a child you might overhear, then in any case everything is distorted. But women's, this is like almost like a Masonic thing, women Rajjagas and Pangat, meeting at Pangat and all that. No men are allowed there. So you may peep in and see a few women dancing or something like that, or you may hear snippets of conversation, but you're not privy to it. And this is a myth which men just revel in. There are 2 or 3 myths, this may not be the proper session for it, but I definitely want to say it since I'm here. One myth is that middle class women always dream of sexual orgies. Sexuality is in their brain. And they forever, one of their dreams, and there are a lot of plays written by men on this. One of their dreams is, sexuality, sexual orgies. Now, why should men dream about sex? Why shouldn't they dream about being prime ministers and presidents and heads of multinationals? I don't understand.
Not so much fun, no fun.
No, they may, but it's fun for men to think that women dream about that.
A fantasy is about.
It's a male fantasy. That should be the female fantasy. See, this is a male fantasy, this is the female fantasy. And if you're an intelligent woman, you feed it. It's only women like me who destroy this, kind of thing. And the other myth is this, that women tell their secrets to each other. That women share more. Now, where has this come from? This is again a fantasy in the male mind, that women get together and they talk very intimately about each other. Men in the locker room, just overhear the conversation in the locker room. You don't have to overhear, I had to. But what they talk about such intimate matters. It's again another fantasy, it is very titillating. That women must be talking about all these things which are very titillating to the lady.
Perhaps males are more explicit in their details, graphic details. Whereas the women are more on...
No, women are very explicit.
So both are equally so?
I've always found it very difficult to come to terms with these myths.
There's one more, you've only done 2.
Yeah, third.
You've done 2, so there's one more, there's 3.
Which one is that?
I don't know, I want to know.
You said there were 3
But
myths.
then I've by now forgotten.
The first
Yeah,
two
there
are
was
good.
a third one which I...
It will come.
I-
It will come.
The first two are really good.
Would you agree that this is because your upbringing has not been what you call the conservative Indian woman's upbringing? You remember you said that your father was a superb person to grow up with.
my
So your
father-
experience is not of the typical experience of being women.
We are 5 sisters, and my father never sort of bemoaned the fact that he had 5 daughters, and which was very atypical. and maybe wanted us to get educated and get on with our lives. And he also did not preach against marriage, but he was not in a hurry to get us married either. So that was an unconventional thing, but I married into a very, very conventional family. Very conventional, very square, very down to earth, very pragmatic family. So it is not that I've seen the so-called backyard. I mean, I spent my childhood in the village most of the time on my summer vacations. And I've seen my great-grandmother and my grandmother talking about it intimately. And there used to be Mardana and Zanana in UP. And I've seen these men congregating in the Mardana, and during the marriages there used to be a mujra, and there was always a tawayaf coming and doing a mujra. I hope you understand what that was. Rather aggressive, said that she wants to hear the Bible sing, So she insisted, so then finally the Bible came to the Zanana, and they asked her to sing. So she sang a Mirabai bhajan. So these women said, what is this? ये क्या सुनाया आपने? कोई भड़कती हुई चीज सुनाई है. So she said, ये तो रूहानी चीज है. इससे भड़कती हुई कोई चीज तो मुझे आती नहीं है. तो कहने जो मर्दों को सुनाती हैं वो सुनाइए. तो उन्होंने कहा नहीं, हमारी भी कोई इज्जत है. वो हम मर्दों के सामने सुनाते हैं, आपको नहीं सुना सकते. फिर उन्होंने कहा कि आप तो घर की औरतें, आपके 100 खून माफ है, मगर हम ये काम नहीं कर सकते. So you see, this whole concept, it is turned on its head, when a woman writes. That's why this whole business of this backyard, front yard, it's very pleasing to a male ego. That there is this vast difference between, men operating in a classical language and women operating in a non-classical language. But I don't think it works like that.
Can I pose a question here? I've been sort of quite curious about this. Can we talk about sex? Yes, in 2 minutes on sex. The regional literature, we have something called the Bad Sex Writing Award, which is a kind of satire, because very often writers bungalow when they try to write about sex. In all our, you're very widely read our